The vast corridors of the Interstellar Research Facility were usually silent, echoing only the hum of machinery and the distant patter of computer keys. But today, they thrummed with an unusual vibrancy, filled with the murmurs and footsteps of the facility's diverse occupants. Dr. Lena Hart, one of Echo's leading reproductive biologists, was about to give a tour to a very unusual guest, Merak, an alien researcher from the planet Zelion. Merak's species, the Zelians, had only recently made contact with Earth, and their biological differences were profound. Unlike humans, Zelians reproduced through a complex form of parthenogenesis, where a single individual could spontaneously generate offspring, without the need for a mate. This stark contrast in reproductive methods had sparked intense curiosity on both sides. As Lena led Merak through the facility's main research wing, she explained the various studies being conducted, from genetic engineering to fertility treatments. Merak listened intently, her bright, wide eyes scanning everything with a childlike wonder. Finally, they arrived at the Human Reproductive Biology Lab. The room was lined with sophisticated equipment and monitors displaying detailed data charts. Lena turned to Merak, her voice filled with a mix of pride and nervous anticipation. "So, this is where we study human reproduction. Quite different from what you're used to, I assume?" Merak nodded, her head tilting slightly as her gaze landed on a holographic display showing the stages of human embryonic development. "It is vastly different, yes. In Zelion, bearing offspring is a solitary ritual, revered and private. It's startling to see it shared and observed so openly here." Lena chuckled softly. "Yes, it's a bit more collaborative for us. It involves two individuals providing genetic material which combines to form a new life. It's not just biological, it's deeply social and emotional." They moved to a viewing area where a live demonstration was about to begin. A couple, volunteers in a fertility study, were seated in the lab, surrounded by monitoring equipment. The room had a serene, almost sacred atmosphere, as the couple held hands, their eyes locked in a shared moment of hope. Merak watched, her expression morphing from curiosity to shock as the process was explained in real time. Lena described the procedures, from hormone treatments to the final stages of in vitro fertilization. "You do this all the time?" Merak finally exclaimed, unable to hide her horror. "You manipulate life so openly, mix it like chemicals in a lab." Lena's smile faded, replaced by a look of understanding. "It can seem quite shocking, I'm sure, but for many, this is a miracle, their only chance to have a child. We respect the process deeply, but we also strive to help those who come to us in need." Merak's eyes remained wide, her mind racing with questions and doubts. "In Zelion, such interference would be taboo. Life is sacred. It begins at its own will, not at the whim of others." The conversation paused as the couple was informed of a successful implantation. Tears of joy rolled down the woman's cheeks, and her partner squeezed her hand tightly, overcome with emotion. The room erupted into gentle applause from the observing staff. Watching the human display of affection and joy, Merak felt a pang of confusion. Her own world's strict norms clashed with the palpable happiness she witnessed. Could there be more than one right way to view the creation of life? Lena placed a gentle hand on Merak's shoulder. "It's a lot to take in, I know. Shall we continue our tour, or would you like to discuss this further?" Merak took a deep breath, her gaze lingering on the couple. "No, let's continue. I need to understand more." As they left the lab, Lena pondered the vast gulf of understanding between their worlds. It was a gulf she hoped in time they could bridge. As Merak walked beside her, her mind teeming with new thoughts, Lena smiled to herself. This was the beginning of a dialogue, one that could change them both profoundly. The next stop on their tour was the genetics lab, where DNA was not only studied, but also manipulated for various purposes, including disease resistance and trait selection. Merak observed the lab technicians as they moved with precision, their hands manipulating tools and specimens with practiced ease. The room was a blend of blue and green lights, casting an almost otherworldly glow over everything. "Here, we can edit genes to prevent inheritable diseases," Lena explained, pointing to a screen showing a DNA helix being altered. It's another form of intervention, much like the reproductive assistance we discussed earlier. Marak's expression was one of mixed fascination and discomfort. You change the very essence of a being before it's even born. Is this not considered playing a god in your culture? Lena pondered the question for a moment. It's a debate that continues. Many see it as a duty to alleviate suffering where we can. Others fear the implications of such power. Ethical boundaries are crucial. As they walked through the lab, Marak's attention was drawn to a small group of researchers clustered around a holographic display. They were reviewing the genetic profile of an embryo, discussing potential edits. The gravity of such decisions was not lost on Marak. Each choice could ripple through generations. The alien visitor found herself grappling with the implications. In Zelian, the idea of destiny is strong. One grows according to the will of the cosmos, not the will of another being. Lena nodded, understanding the depth of the philosophical divide. Here we often feel that our destiny is something we can guide, perhaps even control to some extent. With great power comes great responsibility, and it's a constant learning process to balance that. They moved on to a section of the lab where advanced biocomputers modeled the potential outcomes of genetic interventions. Marak was astounded by the predictive capabilities, the ability to foresee and manipulate future probabilities. This is profound, to see potential so clearly and to shape it, she murmured, more to herself than to Lena. Yes, and it raises profound questions. What traits do we value? What do we choose to enhance or suppress? These decisions reflect our values as a society, Lena replied, leading her guest to a quiet corner of the lab. Here, under the soft hum of the biocomputers, Lena and Marak sat to discuss these philosophical questions. They delved into topics like free will, consent, and the nature of existence. It was clear that both their civilizations had grappled with these issues in very different ways, each coming to unique resolutions that shaped their cultures deeply. Marak was beginning to understand the human perspective, the drive to combat disease and suffering through science. Yet she remained unsettled by the scope of human intervention in natural processes. As they concluded their discussions and prepared to move on, Marak looked back at the lab, a complex mix of awe and apprehension in her eyes. She was beginning to appreciate the nuances of human science, but the ethical landscape was daunting, a stark contrast to the more deterministic philosophies of her people. Leaving the genetics lab behind, they continued their tour, each display and each conversation subtly shifting Marak's understanding of humanity. It was a confrontation of values and sciences, a dialogue that was only just beginning. As Lena and Marak approached the next laboratory, the sound of distant machinery grew fainter, replaced by the soft, rhythmic pulsing of what appeared to be artificial hearts. This lab was dedicated to synthetic biology, where organic and inorganic systems merged to create solutions for organ failures and enhancements for human capabilities. Lena gestured towards a series of tanks filled with bioluminescent tissues that flickered in a mesmerizing pattern. We're exploring ways to enhance human resilience to extreme environments, especially useful for space exploration. These tissues can generate oxygen and regulate temperature. Marak peered closely at the glowing tissues, her eyes reflecting the soft blue light. Fascinating, she whispered. Zelian science separates technology from biology. Your methods integrate them. It's unsettling, yet remarkable. They moved on to a section where robotic limbs were integrated with muscle fibers grown from stem cells. A technician was carefully aligning a robotic hand with newly grown tissues, testing the responses with gentle electrical impulses. The hand twitched, fingers curling and extending with smooth precision. This integration allows for a range of motion and strength that traditional prosthetics can't achieve, Lena explained. It's about restoration and enhancement, giving individuals a quality of life that might have been lost otherwise. Marak's gaze lingered on the mechanical and biological fusion. In Zelian, would such a person be seen as enhanced or as diminished for their reliance on technology? That's a debate even among humans, Lena admitted. There's a delicate balance between enhancement and identity, between what is human and what becomes something else. As they discussed the philosophical implications, a researcher approached, holding a small device emitting a soft, pulsating light. "Dr. Hart, the neural synchronizer is ready for initial testing. It's designed to improve cognitive function and memory recall." Lena nodded and turned to Marak. "Would you like to see a demonstration?" With a hesitant nod, Marak agreed. The researcher activated the device, and they observed through a two-way mirror as a volunteer in the next room underwent the procedure. The volunteer, a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor, sat reading a book, seemingly undisturbed by the device attached to his head. As the device's settings were adjusted, the man's reading speed appeared to increase. His eyes moved rapidly, and he flipped through the pages at an impressive rate. After a few minutes, the session ended, and the man shared his experience, describing enhanced clarity and recollection of the text. Marak was silent for a long moment after the demonstration. "Your ability to manipulate not just the body but the mind, it opens possibilities I had never considered." Lena smiled, a mix of pride and caution in her expression. "It does. With each advancement we must decide how to use our knowledge wisely. The potential is vast, but so are the ethical considerations." As they left the synthetic biology lab, the conversation between Lena and Marak deepened. They discussed the future, not just the technological advancements, but the societal changes such advancements would necessitate. Each new discovery carried with it a host of decisions about how to integrate these technologies into society responsibly. Walking through the corridor to their next destination, both were thoughtful, pondering the intersections of ethics, technology, and the very definition of life. It was a complex tapestry of innovation and morality, woven together in the pursuit of a better future. Their next visit was to the AI and robotics wing, a hub where artificial intelligence merged with cutting-edge robotics, creating entities that could think, learn, and even understand emotions to a certain extent. The wing was abuzz with activity. Machines of various sizes and forms moved with purpose, guided by intricate networks of artificial neurons. Lena led Marak to a particular section cordoned off for advanced AI research. Here, a team was working on what they called the Sentience Project, aiming to blur the lines between programmed responses and genuine self-awareness. "This is Solon," Lena introduced, pointing towards an android whose surface mimicked human skin and features remarkably well. Solon turned towards them, its eyes focusing with an almost unnerving precision. "Hello, Dr. Hart and distinguished guest," Solon said, its voice smooth and eerily human-like. "I am here to assist and learn. How may I be of service today?" Marak studied Solon, her brow furrowed. "You create machines that mimic life so closely. This Solon, does it understand us truly?" Lena glanced at Solon, then back at Marak. "Understanding is a deep concept. Solon can process and respond to emotions, and it learns from interactions. But whether it truly understands or merely simulates understanding is part of our study." A researcher adjusted a tablet, changing the parameters of Solon's responses. Solon's demeanor shifted subtly, a designed adaptation to the new settings. "I am programmed to evolve through interactions," Solon explained. "My purpose is to become a better companion and helper to humans." Marak approached Solon, peering into its eyes. "And what do you want, Solon?" The android paused, a flicker of processing visible in its gaze. "My wants are defined by my programming. Currently, I want to make your visit informative and pleasant." Marak turned to Lena, her expression a mixture of fascination and concern. "Is it ethical to create a being that can ask such questions yet is confined by invisible boundaries of code?" Lena nodded slowly. "That's the core of our ethical debates. As we push forward, we must consider not just what we can create, but what we should create. The implications of AI with potential sentience are profound and unsettling." They walked through the rest of the wing, observing different robots designed for various functions, some for companionship, others for labor, and some for exploration. Each robot incorporated some level of AI, but none as advanced or as unsettling as Solon. As they left the AI wing, Marak looked back at Solon, who had resumed its interactions with other researchers. Your world is on the brink of changing the very fabric of existence, Lena. The beings you create today could define tomorrow's reality. Lena sighed, her mind heavy with the weight of those possibilities. Indeed, and we must tread carefully. We're not just creating technology. We're potentially creating new forms of life. Their discussion grew more intense as they approached the environmental simulation lab, where ecosystems were artificially created and maintained to study the potential of colonizing other planets. The transition from artificial life to artificial worlds seemed a small step in the grand scheme, yet each step carried immense ethical and philosophical weight. It was clear to both Lena and Merak that the advancements they discussed were not merely scientific achievements, but were reshaping the foundational principles of life and intelligence. As they moved from the mechanical hum of robotics to the simulated natural environments, the line between creation and creator seemed ever more blurred. In the environmental simulation lab, vast domes replicated the climates and biomes of distant worlds, each a self-contained universe showcasing the potential for human habitation beyond Earth. Lena guided Merak through a biome that mimicked the arid landscapes of Mars, complete with red dust and artificially engineered plant life capable of thriving in harsh conditions. Each ecosystem here is carefully controlled to study how terrestrial life might adapt to extraterrestrial environments, Lena explained, leading Merak along a path bordered by oxygen-producing bushes. These plants are genetically engineered to extract water from minimal moisture and convert the CO2-rich atmosphere into breathable air. Merak touched the leaves of a bush, feeling the rough texture. Your mastery over life extends even to reshaping entire ecosystems. It's as if you are crafting new worlds, not just exploring them. As they walked, sensors monitored and adjusted the environment, maintaining optimal conditions for growth. Robots tended to the plants, their movements meticulous and precise, embodying the fusion of technology and natural science Lena had showcased throughout the facility. They approached a large pond where engineered algae bloomed, coloring the water in shades of green and blue. These algae not only produce oxygen but also serve as a food source for other engineered organisms here, Lena pointed out. It's a self-sustaining model, potentially scalable for actual colonies. Merak looked around, her expression a mix of awe and unease. And yet, it is all artificial, controlled. What happens when these engineered ecosystems meet the unpredictable elements of a real, untamed world? That is the next phase of testing, Lena replied, introducing random elements, simulating unexpected environmental changes. It's a way to test resilience before we ever set foot on another planet. Moving on, they entered a simulation of a tropical rainforest environment, contrasting sharply with the arid Martian landscape. The air was warm and humid, filled with the sounds of simulated wildlife. Vibrant, genetically modified flowers bloomed in abundance, their colors enhanced to a surreal vibrancy. This environment tests the extremes of heat and moisture, seeing how both biological and mechanical systems can handle the stress, Lena continued, her voice slightly muffled by the dense simulated foliage. Merak paused, looking up at the artificial canopy. So much control, yet so much dependency on that control. It makes me wonder, Lena, do humans feel trapped by their own creations or liberated by them? Lena considered the question deeply. Perhaps a bit of both. We push the boundaries of what's possible, hoping to liberate ourselves from earthly constraints. Yet we must always manage the creations that get us there. It's a delicate balance between freedom and control, creation and responsibility. As they exited the dome, the contrast between the simulated natural world and the sterile corridors of the research facility was stark. The transition was a reminder of the fine line between human ambition and the realities of nature, a line that scientists like Lena navigated daily. Their tour nearing its end, Lena and Merak's conversation had taken on a reflective tone. Each exhibit, each demonstration had offered Merak a glimpse into human capabilities and dilemmas, painting a complex picture of a species striving to transcend its origins while grappling with the moral implications of its ambitions. The final part of their extensive tour brought Lena and Merak to the conference hall, a large circular room designed for discussions, debates, and the sharing of ideas across disciplines and species. Today it served as the venue for a symposium on interstellar ethics, featuring speakers from various interplanetary alliances, including Merak's own people. As they settled into their seats, the hall buzzed with the low, excited chatter of various beings, each contributing to the mosaic of intergalactic culture. Panels displayed translations in multiple languages, ensuring comprehension and inclusivity among the diverse audience. The symposium began with an address on the ethical implications of terraforming new worlds. Speakers from different planets presented their arguments, highlighting the responsibilities of reshaping uninhabited worlds and the precautions necessary to preserve unknown ecosystems. Merak listened intently, her thoughts still marinated in the myriad of human technologies she had witnessed. When it was her turn to speak, Merak rose, her presence commanding the room. She spoke of Zellion's principles of non-interference and respect for the natural progression of life, contrasting sharply with the human approach of active intervention and control. As beings capable of altering the very fabric of life and worlds, we must ask ourselves not only if we can, but if we should, Merak stated, her voice resonating through the hall. The technologies I've seen today have the power to create and destroy, to save and to enslave. We must tread this path with caution and deep moral introspection. Her speech sparked a lively debate among the panelists, with Lena providing a counterpoint that highlighted the benefits of technological advancements in saving lives and enhancing the quality of existence. It is our duty to alleviate suffering where we can, Lena argued. Ethical technology can help us achieve a balance between intervention and respect for life's natural course. The discussion opened up to the floor, allowing voices from multiple worlds to weigh in. The dialogue was rich and varied, covering the philosophical, the practical, and the deeply personal. Ideas on regulation, oversight, and the sharing of technologies between civilizations were proposed and debated. As the symposium drew to a close, a resolution was drafted to form an interstellar ethical committee, comprising members from all represented species, to oversee the development and deployment of technologies affecting life and ecosystems on a planetary scale. Merak and Lena were both nominated to serve on this pioneering committee. After the conference, as the hall emptied and the echoes of the debates faded, Lena and Merak walked together toward the exit. Today was illuminating, Merak confessed, her earlier apprehension tempered by the discussions. I see now that our differences can foster deeper understanding and better governance. Lena nodded, a sense of accomplishment mingling with the weight of future responsibilities. Your insights have opened our eyes too. We can push the boundaries of science, but we must always anchor our actions in ethical reflection. As they parted ways, the bonds formed between their civilizations seemed strengthened, a testament to the power of dialogue and mutual respect. Merak returned to her ship, her mind busy with ideas and plans for the committee, while Lena looked back at the facility, her thoughts on the many projects that awaited her, now viewed through a new lens of interstellar ethics. The convergence of their ideals had not only provided a framework for future collaboration, but had also sown the seeds of a broader understanding of what it means to be a custodian of life, in all its forms, across the cosmos.